Good morning, everybody. I'm Barbara Bellissimo, the Vice President of Development, Marketing, and Communications here at Martha's Vineyard Community Services, and I'd like to welcome you all to our third in the series of interactive CEO briefings. Today, we're focusing on collaborating for the behavioral and social emotional health of the island's youth, an increasingly important topic. We're joined today by Matt D'Andrea, the Superintendent of Martha's Vineyard Public Schools, along with several of his colleagues. Before we get started, I'd like to take care of some housekeeping. It's easier for you to view in speaker mode versus gallery mode. So up in the upper right corner, if you're on a computer, you can click on view and change to speaker mode, and that way you'll get a bigger picture of whoever's speaking instead of the 25 little tiny boxes, and you have to find whoever it is speaking. If you are not speaking, I'd appreciate it if you would mute yourself. We've got a lot of presentation and information to be shared by a bunch of folks this morning, and we're going to ask you to hold your questions until the end, if at all possible. There will be three ways you can ask a question. One is to raise your hand using the Zoom raise hand feature. Two would be to raise your physical hand and wave. I'll be looking out for folks who are waving, and Sandy Sadaka, my colleague and Capital Campaign Officer here, will also be taking a peek at people actually waving their hands. And then if we don't catch you, you can also put your question in the chat or unmute yourself and give us a shout. I'll try and facilitate the Q&A at the end and use the chat to let people know where they are in the order of questions coming up. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Matt D'Andrea, Superintendent of Martha's Vineyard Public Schools. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you very much, Barbara, and welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. Today's topic is very timely and crucially important for our students. I cannot imagine being a child or a young adult in today's world, just coming out of the pandemic, what's going on around the world in Ukraine, the housing challenges that many of our students face on the island. Creates an unprecedented level of anxiety in our students that, of course, as you know, leads to depression, despair, substance use. And in order for us at the public schools to educate our students, we need to address these challenges that can hamper our ability to educate our students. And we cannot do this alone. We are extremely fortunate to have a very strong relationship with community organizations such as Martha's Vineyard Community Services. Community Services has been a primary resource of social services for our students and our families, from disability services with our special education programs to... Somehow I got muted. Can you hear me again? Sorry about that. From disability services with our special ed programs, transition planning, direct mental health services for our students that are embedded in the schools. Community services has been a valued resource to the Martha's Vineyard Public Schools. We're excited to welcome Beth Folcarelli. She's the CEO of MV Community Services. In the short time that Dr. Folcarelli has been in the role of CEO, Martha's Vineyard Public Schools has benefited from ongoing communication, collaboration, and innovation that comes from her extensive experience with schools and working with schools. And it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Folcarelli.
Thank you, Matt. Good morning, everybody. What a pleasure it is to be here today to share with you the phenomenal work underway between Martha Vineyard Community Services and the Martha's Vineyard Public Schools. Matt, thank you for your leadership and service. Congratulations on your move to Wareham. We'll miss you. We're very proud of you, but we will miss you.
Thank you, Beth.
They're very fortunate to have you. Community Services relies on you, Matt, and Richie, and members of your administration and school principals. We call upon your guidance, counselors, and student support professionals, and on educators and others. We do routinely join together and keep a watchful eye on our island's youth. We attend to their often complex needs in what seems to be an increasingly complex world. Our partnership with the public schools extends back decades and decades. In fact, the Martha's Vineyard Community Services campus at 111 Edgartown Road, where I sit right now, rests on land given to community services by the public schools. Over the years, our relationship has cultivated very strong personal and professional ties. Our staff routinely call on each other, days, evenings, weekends, to step up in service for children who may be struggling with episodic or more enduring stressors and life challenges. More than ever, our island school-aged children need the power of our collaboration to address their needs swiftly and effectively. So our agenda today is a full one. I'd like to begin with sharing with you the collaborative model in place between community services and the public school, a model designed to address multifaceted needs of school-aged kids and their families. And then I'll turn the virtual floor over to Jennifer Neary, Program Director of Connect to End Violence, and her incredible team of professionals who dedicate their time, their energy, their expertise, their passion toward the prevention and intervention of domestic, sexual, dating, and other forms of interpersonal violence. They do a wonderful job. They're a spectacular team. And then we'll close out our discussion with some exciting news on the development of a collaborative model of child and family behavioral health presently underway at MVCS and the public schools to help restore mental health services that were, quite frankly, decimated by the coronavirus pandemic. Kim Garrison, Public Schools All-Island Behavioral Health Coordinator and Research Specialist, will join me for that particular part of our session before we open up the floor for questions. So we've got a lot of territory to cover, and so I'll just get to it. Let's start with the most common challenges we see facing school-age youth. From a recent assessment of behavioral health needs of islanders conducted by my management team, the following trends emerged. The first trend was that emergency mental health situations are common on Martha's Vineyard. In approximately the last year, community services conducted 1,101 emergency evaluations. Some islanders had multiple mental health crises and assessments. We served 656 islanders in emergency mental health situations, and 33% of that group were school-aged youth. The second trend is that the island has a sustained need for intervention and support related to domestic and sexual violence. Connect to End Violence has served 463 unique clients in the last year, completed nearly 2,000 evaluations, client contact appointments, and fielded 256 hotline calls. So it's a busy program, and you'll hear more from them. The third trend is that families have serious housing stressors, including multi-generational households where children may be exposed to age-inappropriate behaviors. So we see more and more families being creative in their housing scenarios because housing is just so difficult on Martha's Vineyard. Families have food insecurity and economic stressors. We seek families seeking our help for routine housing, fuel, and food support. There's increased parental stress and conflict. Coronavirus really took its toll on all of us, most specifically on families. There's increased parental substance use, and we see the impact on that on children from early childhood all the way up through adolescent and transitional age youth. There's increased isolation, depression, and anxiety among youth, suicidal thoughts, suicidal gestures. We do a lot of that work in our enhanced urgent care program. Truancy and school avoidance is occurring at younger ages. There are grave challenges for newly immigrated families, and we saw an influx of immigrating families this year. And wait lists. It's tough to combat these. The needs are on the rise, and our staffing is short, and so wait lists for psychiatric and counseling services endure. So yes, these are serious realities for us, realities we address in partnership with the schools each and every day. So Barbara, you brought up the collaborative model. Thank you. You're ahead of me. Barbara Bellissimo is always ahead of the game. So let's start with the collaborative model and the Island Counseling Center. ICC is the first way we intersect with the schools. Island Counseling Center provides urgent, episodic, and/or long-term therapeutic services for children, adolescents, and families who encounter developmental challenges related to adjustment, overall mental health, and also functional skill development. Our counseling center works closely with guidance staff to facilitate urgent referrals to meet immediate needs and/or longer-term therapeutic help. Our goal is to promote a unified approach among child, family, school, and counselor to create optimal outcomes for youth at school, community, and home. Through our urgent care program, we try desperately to keep kids out of the emergency department and the hospital, at the hospital. Our enhanced urgent care can provide urgent mental health services for Islanders of all ages, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We're really proud of that program, and it's been hard to keep it afloat amidst this pandemic. The second tier of our collaborative model involves community services employment programming. Matt mentioned that in his introductory remarks. And our STEP program helps students prepare for what comes after high school. STEP builds off each student's skills, their interests and needs, and operates as a bridge to the island community. The program is open to students 14 to 22 with a documented disability who are enrolled in high school or post-secondary education or training. STEP encompasses 5 core services: job exploration and counseling, workplace readiness, workplace learning, experiential learning, counseling on post-secondary educational training, and self-advocacy and peer mentoring. It's a wonderful program that operates under the authority of Beth White. The third tier of our model is the Island-wide Youth Collaborative, otherwise known as IWYC across Martha's Vineyard. IWYC is a vital part of our work with the public schools. As a contracted family resource center by the Department of Children and Families, IWYC offers a broad range of supportive services for youth and families. What is important to know here, share with you, is that IWYC provides services and resources and requires no identifying information from families in order to do so. Families are able to remain anonymous should they prefer and still get the help that they need. This feature builds trust between the community and IWYC. IWYC works with the public schools to plan for the needs for some of our island's most vulnerable families. While some cases are protective in nature, referred by the Department of Children and Families, most of the services offered by IWYC center on helping working class families who need help to successfully move through a particular episode. Oftentimes the focus is on parenting or healthcare or housing, food, fuel, or immigration issues. Our island-wide youth collaborative has a dedicated position to work with the schools as well as clinical and programming staff. And in the last year, IWIC served 822 clients. The program also engaged 150 new participants in program. So this program is thriving, and this reflects the intensive needs of the island. Under the direction of Susan Mercier, this program offers a broad range of services and supports to families in great need. And then the fourth tier of the model is Connect to End Violence. Connect to End Violence provides learning and other supportive and intervention opportunities for school-age youth, grades 5 to 12, to develop healthy peer, school, and family relationships, to build strong self-care and advocacy skills, especially in the face of interpersonal stress, aggression, and violence, cultivate a strong knowledge base regarding interpersonal, sexual, and/or domestic and dating violence, and formulate constructive peer alliances to foster safety in school, community, and home. I'm honored to introduce you to Jennifer Neary and the Connect team, who will share the scope of their incredible work. So Jennifer, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Beth.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. Our team here, we're excited to share with you our work and our passion for this work. I've had the privilege and honor of working with Connect to End Violence for the past 11 years, 8 years as director. The Connect program is a dual domestic violence and rape crisis center, as Beth described. And I'll tell you a little bit about what that looks like before you hear from the incredible people next to me to share more detail about our services. All of our programming is driven by our mission, and that can be separated into two themes. One, our direct services, and we provide those services to people who have experienced the domestic violence, sexual assault, dating, violence, and stalking of all ages, and there's no restrictions on who can access our services. Services are provided through a 24-hour crisis hotline access, and also through counseling and advocacy within our community. Part of the theme of today is collaboration and community, and before I get into that piece, it's also seen through our direct service work, and that's seen through our strong working relationships with law enforcement, within the court system, within the hospital, and with the schools that we're talking about today. The direct service component is unique in that anyone can access our services if you identify as a survivor, but also those who are supporting loved ones who have been victimized as well. And everything, I think, is free and confidential, as I said. The second theme of our mission and of our programming has to do with changing social norms and impacting change. That's seen through our prevention, awareness, community outreach efforts, and education. Morgan and Matt will be telling you more about that later as well. But I did want to comment on, again, the strength of our partnering relationships is what makes this possible. The work that we do at Connect can be very challenging at times, and it's through the strength that we see with the individuals that we support each and every day that motivates and inspires us to keep on going. And it's the how our partners, our community partners in law enforcement and the schools and hospital, how they also value the work and they see the importance of it, that allows us to do what we do and share the messaging and the access to services. 2 years ago, with COVID happening and the new restrictions put in place, our work within the school system started to look a little differently. And while they did an amazing job of navigating those changes and providing the education and supports for their students, they also saw the value in the work that our team provides for students in the school. And they worked with us to continue that access to students and the messaging that we put forth. So I'd like to introduce Matt Milowski, who will be talking about one of our strong collaborations.
Hello, everybody. My name is Matthew Milowski, and I'm here. I have a bit of a dual role in my work with, I'm employed both at Martha's Vineyard Regional High School and Martha's Vineyard Community Services. So today I'm speaking, with essentially two hats, but mostly my work with Connect. So with Connect, I'm the men's initiative specialist. And through this collaborative work that has been done throughout the years between community services and the high school and the work that we've done at Connect, there's been a program that's been developed called SWEAR. And SWEAR means Stand With Everyone Against Rape. And in this work, with my colleague at MVRHS, Amy Lillavois, we realized that, the work that is needed in order to support the work that Connect does, we needed to engage men more. And so there arose this need to have more, I just lost my train of thought.
Conversation.
Yes, conversation. To get more of our young men involved in this work. So with SWEAR, we started on behalf of a senior who started a senior project a few years back, introduced this idea of how to get more men involved. So there was a program that was developed at Dover Sherborne that, alumni, a friend of some boys at that school, was raped at Syracuse University. And so these boys started an assembly, to raise awareness. We took that idea and ran with it and developed what we have today, which is a full-on program where we take around 30 of our young men and girls at the school, and we do a 2-day retreat. And at that 2-day retreat, we help them understand the importance of healthy manhood, the difference between healthy manhood and toxic masculinity, and how that culture and how those social norms lead into sexual assault, sexual harassment, and gender-based violence. And so that's really the premise of the work that we do with SWEAR. Obviously, it goes unsaid of the importance of that work. Here, at the high school, the work that Amy and I do with our students here as school adjustment counselors, we have a lot of young people that come to us with these challenges. And it's the work and the connections that we have with Connect and community services that allows us to build these bridges and these connections with these young people. Because of the proactive work and the preventative work that we're doing through the SWEAR program, not only are we raising awareness and building agency for these young people, but they are building connections with people outside of the school. So the impact is that we are able to help these kids. We're able to help these families. We're able to provide safety and support for some people and for these survivors who are feeling really alone and scared. So the work that is done through SWEAR is obviously educational, but the impact goes far beyond that. So with that said, I'm going to turn this over to Morgan, who's going to talk about how we engage these kids even more.
Great, thank you. So my name is Morgan Bosley. I'm the Education and Prevention Coordinator at Connect. So I've been with the agency for almost 2 years now. And every single day I come to work and I think about how much I wish when I was in school, my school had a partnership with a program like Community Services and like Connect, because I think that these kids are exposed to so many things, but they don't necessarily know the resources. So that's kind of what we're able to do with this program at Connect and with Community Services. So we facilitate these healthy relationships conversations, 5th grade through 12th grade, starting as simple as what it means to show someone respect. And it builds all the way through 12th grade and giving them ways to support someone who's disclosed sexual assault. So these conversations build year after year. This year alone, right now, we've facilitated 61 classes across the schools. And we have 2 more scheduled today, and then we have like 15 left for the rest of the school year. So we are very busy, but these classes are absolutely incredible. for the sake that not only are we giving them information on what unhealthy relationships look like, but we're giving them the positives of what healthy relationships look like. Each class is kind of set up the same way, where it's information, and then it's also offering resources that are available to them at any given time. So, we talk about, the 24-hour crisis hotline Connect offers. We talk about the guidance counselors being aware of these conversations. We identify maybe coaches and teachers that these students can go to. So really kind of building up that collaborative effort that, there are trusted adults for these students to be able to reach out to. During COVID, it's incredible the importance that these teachers and the school administration have seen for these classes. We were able to Zoom into classes when students were in the hybrid model. It wasn't necessarily something that was pushed aside. The teachers really felt the importance of these conversations. And another piece with this impact is, teachers are also allowing themselves to be vulnerable. The teachers get involved in these conversations and ask questions that maybe have been brought to them as teachers, or maybe things that they've seen that students might not feel comfortable asking just yet. And that kind of breaks the ice. So I'm learning every single time that I go in to talk with these students about, hardships that they might be facing. It's also been incredible to watch some of these 8th graders become freshmen. So you start to see the relationship changes in their lives. And, had students say, I remember this from class, and, I was able to reach out to this resource. So, having students thank us. That's kind of the cool part too, is I become a familiar face in the schools too. So students are starting to feel comfortable. Alongside that, we were noticing with the healthy relationships classes that we, again, had seen the increase in Brazilian population and Portuguese speaking students. So we weren't necessarily able to deliver the same content. So I think that's kind of where I'm going to pass it along to my teammate Priscilla to kind of talk about the cultural changes that have happened in the schools, but also how to offer that culturally specific programming, because she also is a familiar face in the schools now. So I'm going to pass it on to you.
Thank you, Morgan. My name is Priscilla Vilaça. Some of you maybe know me for the last presentation when they were here talking about access. I was talking about CCAT, Client Community Access Team. And here today with my other hat, I'm with Connect. And I am bilingual. I am in Connect about a year. And I'm so happy to be part of this team. And in collaboration with the high school, we facilitate the Women of Color group. It's an amazing group where we feel like we are bringing those girls to this conversation to empower them, be who they are, don't be afraid, make a safe space for them where they can share their fears with us. And we always have such a good conversation, empower them, tell them that we are here to hear them, they have a voice. And every time that we have those conversations, we are learning so much together about all those different cultures. And now we are expanding. And we are bringing like the Brazilian community as well, like those Brazilian girls to this group as well, to make them inclusive. Like we have a voice, you can hear, we are here for you. And when they see faces, as Morgan say before me, like they start to recognize you, they feel comfortable, they want to say hi to you, where like wherever you are in the school, they're looking for you because they feel comfortable, like I know this person, I know someone. And be able to understand like the difference, like the cultural piece, it's a huge thing because they say this person as well know what I'm going through, this person be where I am because I am someone who defines myself as someone of color as well, I'm biracial. So, and be able to be there, we are speaking the same language, we see the same struggles, they already being I went before when I was teenager as well. So it's great. It's been great. We are growing together. And now we have this amazing opportunity as well to have healthy relationships in Portuguese. It's been something very great. We never had this before. And I have like my first one, I think was with 40 students. And they say, oh my gosh, how amazing is that to have someone here speaking a language. So it wasn't such an amazing moment. Of course, we have so much more to do. It's a lot of work, but at least we already start, and we're looking forward to do something way more bigger. We're looking to do workshops, working like very closely with in my role, like with the Brazilian community and with other communities as well, and bring them together with us, make them feel included, they are heard, they have a voice, and we are here to help you. So saying that, I'm gonna turn my voice to January.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And thank you for this time. I'm handing it back over to Beth.
She's in the process
I
of
have to,
unmuting herself.
yeah, I had to unmute myself. Took a bit. Oh, so funny. Well, thank you, Jennifer, Morgan, Matt, Priscilla. You know, the expertise and passion you bring to the Connect program, the island schools and our students and the community overall makes the island a healthier and safer place for all. So we so appreciate you and the work that you do. And Priscilla, I echo the work that you're doing, you know, both on the client and community access team and the work in Connect to really bring our services to the Brazilian population has the Portuguese speaking individuals has just been really phenomenal, and we already see it's making such an incredible impact on our community. So we really appreciate the work that you do. Let's now turn to the incredible work we're doing with the public schools in restarting our child and family behavioral health services in conjunction with administrators, educators, adjustment counselors, other school personnel with whom we connect on a daily basis to meet the mental health and adjustment needs of students. When I joined community services at the height of the coronavirus pandemic in August 20, times were unstable and uncertain. And prior to COVID, community services staff routinely interfaced with the school and provided both episodic and long-term counseling for students with behavioral health needs. But as the school closed, families found themselves struggling to survive. Parents were working from home while their children attended school in remote virtual environments. Mental health needs, while sizable and on the rise, were not at the top of a family's priority list. So at the time, families simply struggled to make it through the day. And we find that these challenges continue. The artifacts of COVID remain. Community services, behavioral health services were decimated by the pandemic. We went from providing counseling to nearly 100 students per year to a number you could count on one hand. That's how far off our services went with the pandemic. But today, we are on a fresh new path with our partners at the public schools. We join together with a shared goal to restore and strengthen our collaborative behavioral health model. And so now I'd like to defer to Kim Garrison, who will share more about a recent grant award to the Martha's Vineyard Public Schools by the Department of Early and Secondary Education and how the public schools are expanding their behavioral health offerings. Kim, it's all yours.
Thanks, Beth. So Kim Garrison, Behavioral Health Coordinator for the schools. And I'm at home with my child. So of course, this is when you're gonna see this happen. So I apologize. I'm going to have to take care of that. I really am sorry.
That's okay. I can move forward, Barbara, and speak to what the behavioral health model looks like, if we can do that. And then if Kim comes back, okay, we'll handle it that way. That is so, actually Kim predicted it. She's like, this is a tough morning with Kennedy. So, so that we can certainly we can certainly roll with this. And this is just case in point of what parents have been struggling with, right? And trying to make things work, and juggling work and childcare and schooling. So it's really been a very complicated time in our history and in our lives. So as I close out this behavioral health segment this morning, I'd like to highlight the behavioral health model that we are presently working on between community services in conjunction with Kim and the rest of the team at who work in the behavioral health space at the public schools. The behavioral health model has 4 key elements, 2 of which occur as embedded services in the schools, and 2 occur are site-based here on campus at community services. Overall, the model encompasses a full range of comprehensive services available to school-aged children. They include episodic or long-term mental health counseling, psychoeducational groups for students or parents to help build knowledge and develop skills to manage challenging situations. It includes enhanced urgent care, a service open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. School staff can, and they do, quite literally, escort students across the street to the Island Intervention Center. Our team is here to conduct emergency assessments and develop therapeutic plans that promote safety and stabilization, and prevent trips to Martha's Vineyard Hospital, to the emergency department, and hopefully to divert inpatient hospitalization. That is the goal of our enhanced urgent care program. In the last year, community services conducted 216 emergency assessments for school-aged children. And finally, it is our hope to secure a prescribing provider for child and adolescent psychiatric services. We are all aware of the dearth of on-island psychiatric services for latency and adolescent-aged youth. So the ink is almost dry on a contract with a new advanced psychiatric nurse practitioner who will do both site-based, island-based, and telehealth services for children and adolescents. And she is scheduled to begin this work in September. So we're working hard to finalize that agreement. So I'm going to finish here, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Kim.
Thank you. I'm so sorry, Beth.
And that's okay. That's okay. And then we'll regroup. Okay. So the ink is almost dry with this practitioner, and we're really excited to have her on board. So in order to meet these needs, we are going to need the staffing, and that's where our focus centers now. It's really on hiring and training up the best staff possible to support this model. So I'm going to turn it back over to Kim, who can talk about the school's work in securing the grant to support this initiative and the work underway at the public schools related to behavioral health expansion. So Kim, it's all yours.
Kennedy was trying to get in the Zoom room, so she couldn't get in, so she came in my lap. So I actually have been on this journey since I was hired in 2018 at Community Services, and then have switched over to the schools as a natural bridge to continuously building comprehensive behavioral health in schools. And so it has been an awesome journey. And I actually just wanted to share a little bit of the larger model. It's really important when we're thinking about partnerships between schools and agencies to understand that there are 2 well-structured systems and how they actually interact. And so I just wanted to show a little bit about that. And then to segue into, Beth gave the punchline to the joke. She showed us what the model is that we're creating as a result of this Department of Elementary and Secondary Education grant, which in full totals almost $350,000 for our schools to lend towards building multi-tiered systems of comprehensive school behavioral health. Barbara, if you wouldn't mind just pulling up my slides, I'll do a really quick run through. So in 2018, we had a large scale youth wellness evaluation done by some doctors from the Georgetown Y Center in the University of Maryland Medical School. And on the left-hand side, you'll see that access to behavioral health was a primary recommendation. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I know, hold on one second. So when we talk about comprehensive behavioral health in schools, we'll often see this little triangle that has tiers. And one of the highlighted middle paragraphs shows that strategic partnerships are essential for this to take place in schools. So community services fits within making sure that we are able to provide those tiered services to our students at all levels. Next slide, please. So when we talk about tiered services in schools, we talk about really that bottom triangle suiting the needs of all our students. And we want to have a success rate of at least 85% of prevention, so that the work that we're doing, like our Connect work of going into our health education classes, all of the prevention work that we're doing is really mitigating the amount of risk that our students are exposed to. The tier 2 is our small group interventions that again partner with community service to provide some of those psychoeducational groups and counseling. And tier 3 is where we want to see the least amount of our students in getting treatment and direct services. But yet again, community services helps to fill in those gaps. So we couldn't do this without them. Next slide. And I think that
is all the slides.
Yeah, that's all I have. So when we came about to receiving this award, or even the potential of receiving the award, I immediately called Beth up because I knew about her strategic plan and community services strategic plan to really revisit the Child Behavioral Health Initiative. And it just was such a natural fit. And because we had already engaged in ongoing conversations about how to continuously restructure our work together, we were able to respond to that proposal really fast. And so I really am so grateful to Beth and her team in being able to kind of pivot every single time we make that call. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim. And we really appreciate you and the entire team. These first meetings that we have had, to flesh out this model and to really not only resurrect the program, to have embedded services at the school, but also really solid linkages between all of our programs when needed for the school, I think is a really great step moving forward. And Kim, we provide services not only for kids, if you want to come by today for some, for some, moral support, I'm here. I'm not a clinician, but I got your back, girl, today. You are really doing an amazing job, and you did an amazing job today. And thank you for sticking with it today. I am going to turn it back to Barbara now, who will open up the floor.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks, Beth, Kim, Matt, the team at Connect. Really great info. There's lots to look forward to here at Community Services and our partnerships with the public schools and other island nonprofits and agencies to really address the growing crisis in behavioral and social emotional health of our youth. I'd like to open it up for questions. Again, you may either raise your physical hand, raise your hand using the Zoom function, or just shout out or put your question in the chat. I see Howie Goldstein's hand is up, and then we'll go to Carol Kenny. Howie?
Good morning, everybody. Great presentation, great program, very, very informative. Curious, however, what do you consider to be the greatest challenges you might face in implementing this wonderful program, and how can the community be helpful? I'm throwing that out to anyone from MVCS, I guess.
Well, I can start and just say, I do think that we have known over the course of we have known historically that the staffing up of any business on the island really struggles. For nonprofit work, it's especially challenging. With the changes in economic climate and the housing, really just the housing issue here, staffing, getting a robust staff to deliver the services is difficult. And then the other impact of that is when there are staffing transitions. We spoke about this earlier in the week when we met with the school team and the community services team, is that sometimes we get great things started and they're on a wonderful path, but then there's a transition. You lose an instrumental staff person, and then what happens is the whole system sort of falls apart. And so that's part of the, what we can do about it. And this is why we're really coming together as a broader team with all of our staff at community services and Kim, and really the full range of guidance and support staff at the schools, is that we're trying to provide redundancy. So if there are transitions of a person or persons, the rest of the system can operate, and we're not stymied by that moving forward, because we know it is a reality. The staffing challenges for us are a reality, and so we have to plan for that more effectively. If anyone else wants to chime in too, please do.
All right, thanks, Beth. Carol, Kenny, you had a question?
Well, it's just an amazing, amazing model. And anyway, it's just so impressive what you all have done. I guess, what are the key ingredients for success is a sort of a broad question. I have another question too, though, especially for people in the Connect program. Do you get a lot of support in the households? I mean, for parents, are some of these kids that you're teaching maybe working against the kind of behavior and things that they see in their own household? Or is it mostly educating kids among their peer group not to behave in a certain way? I mean, I could imagine that some of the kids that you work with see behaviors in their own household that might go against what you're trying to instill in our students. But just one broad comment again is, it's just amazing your far reach, how you're putting all this together, the collaboration that you're doing is really amazing, especially with, against what Beth was saying, the roadblocks of housing and finding people to come to the island to do this really valuable work. That's a long question.
Next, do you want to take that on? That was it's a very interesting question about the impact of when students become aware, educated, now they have this knowledge, what happens as a result of that.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Carol, for the question. So I think the response would speak to, I think, the two elements of our work. Oftentimes the first point of introduction could be about, through the healthy relationship classroom discussions, about healthy relationships as opposed to abusive relationships and what a healthy relationship looks like in communication. So in that stance, the students are aware of it, and we want them to be leaders and an active bystander within their own peer community and school community. But it also, of course, what's happening in the home can be, things can come up as well. And when that happens, we're there to support the student. Morgan, she might field different questions during the classroom discussions kind of that come up in students. But it also, to echo what Morgan and Priscilla said before, having that familiar face, if something does come up and the student wants to engage in further supports, our staff, we're there and we're ready to work with them. So we can help them navigate different things that are happening in the home and provide that direct service in addition to the prevention work we're doing. I don't know if you want to say.
And kind of just to go off of that too, when we have these conversations in the classroom, we do identify who these trusted adults are. So if it is happening in the home, who else could someone go to? Is there a teacher that the students trust? We do go over the fact that the hotline is a free and confidential service that the students can utilize themselves too. So really kind of trying to break down those barriers. If this is happening at home, there are still resources that are available to the students.
I do see one of the great parts of my role is that I just can call out my staff and put them on the spot. And I'm going to do that right now with Susan Mercier, because your other part of your question, Carol, about, what are some of the things, critical success, what would foster success. You know, IWIC is a really important model. I see Susan here and also Jennifer Vogel, who runs our clinic. You know, they might be able to speak a little bit as to about what will support the success of this collaborative model. Susan, you want to pipe in? You usually have something to say, Susan. Something very smart to say.
Well, thank you. We're so excited about the collaborative model. We've also worked very closely with the schools for several years. We have a position in our office, a school liaison position, that is really key, in my opinion, to the success of this. So our school liaison, and I'm really happy to report that we have a school liaison newly hired. She'll be beginning with us on May 16th. That staff member is responsible for meeting with each school on the island bi-weekly. And it depends on the building. Usually we meet with guidance counselors. In some buildings, we're meeting with guidance and the nurse and an SRO or a principal and vice principal. And we work with the schools to talk about the families that we have in common and ways in which we can support them. A lot of times what we see when working with young children and families is it really is an onion. And you may be approached with one specific issue and you're really dealing with 4 or 5 very significant issues. Working together with the schools, we're able to really provide an incredible safety net for not just the child, but for the family as well. At these meetings, we also discuss supposals or brainstorm around other students that we may not have in common, and in complete confidentiality without mentioning names, we walk through scenarios and solutions for those families who are then ultimately referred to our program. From there, our staff provides a really lovely wraparound experience for the family, and it really helps with providing services without over communicating and without families having to tell their stories 3, 4, 5 times to different providers. And for us to really connect with guidance, the SRO, maybe the child's at the after school program at the Y, and we can give the Y strategies and how to help a child navigate throughout that day. So that's one way in which this has been successful for several years. And just by creating a stronger collaboration moving forward, this relationship will really just be strengthened.
Barbara, you mentioned, we'll move on to Lorraine. Thank you,
Yeah.
Susan. Thank
Yep.
you.
Lorraine Wells.
Hi, so I had a thought about, someone asked, what can we do to help community services, especially with regard to the staffing issue? And so Beth has come up with a brilliant idea that is just now starting up, and that's the clinical residency program, where we offer housing and employment to folks who are coming out of a master's degree program and need their 1 or 2 years of supervised experience. So we offer the position, the supervision, and the housing on the island. We actually have a house that's almost ready to start this program. So what I think that all of us can do is reach out to people that we know, or who may know of someone who is in this position who would like to move to Martha's Vineyard for at least a few years to finish their supervisory requirements, hopefully stay. But that was Beth's brilliant idea about how to recruit some staff that are so desperately needed with regard to solving the housing issue for them as well. So if we all could think about, where we went to school, can you reach out to that school, to that graduate department, somebody's granddaughter, niece, whatever, grandson, nephew, who might be willing to entertain this wonderful idea. That's my thought.
Thanks, Lorraine. Stay tuned for more on clinical residency. As Lorraine said, we're finishing up the house and actively recruiting residents. Karen Toohey, would you like to ask your question?
Actually, I just wanted to make a comment. People have raised the issue around housing and how its impact on school-age kids. a couple of years ago, I did a survey of all the 5th to 8th graders over at the Oak Bluff School. And then I met with clusters of kids who were impacted by housing insecurity, and they wanted to do something about it. One of the unique things on the island, as we know, is that if you're homeless, you're not necessarily indigent, that there are families who are working here, who are great families, who are our neighbors, who have kids in school, and they're dealing with rentals that are from October through maybe April or May. We're short about 1,000 units. And so there's an awful lot of families on the island who are dependent upon rentals that are winter rentals. How did this impact on the kids? A number of families I met with, particularly at the high school level, when they lost their rental in the spring, the parents would live in vehicles or somewhere, and the kids would then, excuse me, go live with friends or family, you know, in separate from their parents, and in order to finish the school year. There were also kids who said, you know, MCAS is going on, and I just either had to move or I'm in the process of packing up all of my stuff and I can't concentrate. There are a number of kids who just lost their best friend, and that was this form of depression. There were a couple of kids who were 8th graders, and everyone was visiting the high school and planning for transition. And they said, I don't know where I'm going to go to high school next year. I don't know if I'm going to be on the island. And they were depressed about that. There were kids living in very overcrowded or substandard housing, or someone, Beth mentioned previously, being exposed to inappropriate behaviors because of where they were living. And that was hard on them. They couldn't bring kids home. They felt, you know, very much sort of ashamed of the situation they were living in. So I don't know, you know, if there's anything we can do. It's a reality that there's a significant number of kids who start the school year in September and they're not in stable housing yet. They won't be for a month or two. And there's also a significant number of kids who are being displaced in April or May before the school year ends. And I don't know if we've reached out to them and provided any additional supports.
Thanks, Karen. Beth or Matt, care to comment?
What to say? I wish I had solution for that particular problem. It is it's a real one, and
it is, if I may, it is a real one.
yeah.
And it's been ongoing, and I do appreciate the work that has been done by you know, those folks with a housing bank. I think that that's going to be helpful, and we have some other folks on the island who are working in real ways that are going to help alleviate some of that. But it is a growing issue, and especially with the rising housing costs, it becomes more and more challenging.
Thank you. Diamond Ellie Vanderhoop's iPad has raised their hand.
I'm Roxanne Ackerman. She's my daughter.
Hi, Roxanne.
I am on the school committee. Thanks. This is brought together a great group, and some of you are old colleagues. Nice to, anyway. Do the schools, Karen, you moved me. So do each of the schools know when these kids are going to be in, you know, in that situation? And I, you know, start, you know, with each school and who is having a problem that we can probably help with. And I know there are a lot of behavioral health problems that, you know, need the spectrum of the collaboration that we've described today. But you described a big group of people that need our support, and it should start in the schools, for heaven's sakes.
Kim?
Roxanne,
Thanks.
I can actually respond to that. So it really is a pretty complex and nuanced way to actually identify when. So I think, first of all, the additional training that our teachers and our staff get on recognizing when there's been shifts in behaviors of students that signal and are symptomatic of a significant change and shift in their lifestyle, whether it's housing or whatnot. So they are the front line all of the time. So the more that we can bolster up their knowledge of being able to identify that and have those trusting relationships, that's a primary focus as well. The guidance staff and the adjustment counselors have an awesome relationship. And the more that we can promote that resource is there to have trusting conversations, that's another way to be able to triage those students to get support immediately. Having that relationship then to community services and to other networks of social services is key. The other piece of this larger grant is to also start to bolster up more screening of students in social emotional competencies, but also in mental health, so that we can identify when there are internalizing and externalizing risks that are associated with all of those life shifts. So there's a lot of different things that are planned and that are done in the schools. And that's why I mean that it's a complex, because it's based on who observes it and who has that trusted conversation.
Okay, I have another one when the topic is over.
We're running over time. This sounds like it's a topic for its own Zoom, which I would suggest.
Okay. The other one would be maybe there are young students with social emotional issues. Are they isolated, or do they find a way to talk to each other and maybe not feel so alone? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much, everybody, for all your questions and for all your good discussion. There's a lot happening here, a lot of impacts on our youth and their families, and lots of ways that we're addressing them together. Beth and/or Matt, do you have closing remarks?
I just want to thank people for being here. It's so nice that you take time out of your busy day to learn about, how we're working together. And also, there's always something that pops up in these that really provides us more to think about, more to address, and so forth. So I just really appreciate Karen bring that forward. We do know that of that particular issue, but it is something that we might be able to impact upon more. Matt, I'll turn it over to you to close us out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Folcarelli. Thank you to, first of all, thank you to all of you who attended. I very much appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here. We thank you to our presenters today.
Wonderful.
And the public schools truly appreciates all that has been accomplished through our collaboration with community services, and looks forward to many more years of partnering to provide these crucial services to our students. This is good work. This is important work. And it's truly, truly beneficial to our kids, our families, and the island. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
The recording will be sent to everybody as soon as it's ready. So thanks again for being here. Have a great weekend.